Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. My name is LB. Any pronouns work for me. I'll be your worship associate today, and I'm happy to be joined by the members of the BIPOC Black Indigenous People of Color Authors Book Group, Lois and Don Porter, and the Reverend Linda Anderson. As you can see, Maria's off today, so we have the privilege of hearing lots of music from the Doc Benson Trio today. Lucky us. Thank you for coming into this circle of caring people, journeying with curiosity. May we find meaning together on this beautiful summer day.
The BIPOC Authors Group began in 2021 as part of the congregation's anti-racism efforts. As we could not gather in person, you remember what was going on then, COVID, we decided to gather on Zoom and talk about books. We read BIPOC authors, Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and in 2022, we added LGBTQ authors, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, or questioning. We read fiction, poetry, plays, memoirs, mysteries, and short stories. And since 2021, the group has read 10 to 12 books each year. So here is a short sampling of the books that we have recently read, or listened to on audiobooks, or watched on television. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, a novel about friends who start a video game company. Fires in the Mirror, a play by Anna Devere Smith, based upon events in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, when a rabbi's car hit and killed a young Black boy. Sabrina and Corina, Stories, by Kali Fajardo Anstine, short stories about Chicanas living in the Southwest. And The Way to Rainy Mountain, by Scott Momaday, recalling the journey of Taime, the sacred Sundance doll, and of Taime's people, who became known as Kiowa, in three unique voices: the legendary, the historical, and the contemporary. And for me, the most fun book we read was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice to Murderers by Jesse Sutanto. It was about, you might guess, a murder solved by the owner of a Chinese tea shop. The group is open to everybody, so please consider joining us. Information about what we read and how to join on Zoom can be found in circuits. So the BIPOC Authors Group has several purposes: reading the work of less read, often bypassed authors, financially supporting BIPOC authors by buying their books and spreading the word about it, as well as enlarging our own worlds. Lois Porter says, quote, "By entering into someone else's world through the pages of a novel, I found it possible to begin to see beyond the limitations of my own. I found it possible to understand and to empathize with people who are radically different from me. Several strands of recent research confirm that reading fiction can increase empathy this way. At the Princeton School Neuroscience Lab, for example, psychologist Diana Tamir has shown that people who frequently read fiction have better, quote unquote, social cognition. In other words, they're better at working out what other people are thinking and feeling. Using brain scans, Tamir found that when people who are reading fiction are compared to those who are not, there's more activity in the parts of the brain that are involved in simulating what other people are thinking. So it's good for the brain, too. But the BIPOC Authors Group serves the purposes I just said, and it has a much larger and deeper rationale. Nicole Cardoza, in her newsletter, Anti-Racism Daily, challenged us to, quote, browse your bookshelves or think about the books you've read this year. Reflect how many books are by people of color, by Black writers. Are all those books only focused on trauma or pain? Are all the books you read for fun or for pleasure all by white writers? Think about the books you might have in your house or on your computer. Think about who's there and who's not there. Jamie Nakamura Lin goes further on this theme. In the wake of George Floyd in 2020, people talked a lot about how anti-racist reading was on the rise, and they pointed to the number of Black authors on the New York Times bestseller list. But with one or two notable exceptions, those authors were writing nonfiction explicitly about racism. And meanwhile, the lists, like in Publishers Weekly, were full of white writers writing about everything else. Unfortunately, we have a tendency to read Black authors or authors of color only when they write about very specific topics. And she says it's a problem deeply entrenched in publishing. L.L. McKinney argues that there is the exploitative aspect of non-Black readers taking in this story and somehow feeling they've accomplished something. They've managed activism by bearing witness to the events of the book, but then don't follow up with seeking change in the real world. Reading then becomes performative. Nakamura Lin continues, so it's not that reading books about issues is problematic. It's not. But it is problematic when those are the only books by Black authors or authors of color that you read. It's problematic when you turn to writers of color when you want to be educated, but white writers the rest of the time. Reading the fiction, the poetry, the plays of BIPOC authors opens a window into the fullness of the lives that are depicted in the work. Family life, friendships, work, play, ordinary days, special days, circumstances. People expand beyond being representatives of their particular racial, ethnic, or religious and or gender groups, and they become individual human beings with multifaceted lives and identities. And seeing something of the fullness of their lives lets us see the humanity of the people depicted. It reminds us of our own humanity, our own complexity, our own multifaceted lives. We connect human to human. We can connect and know that we are different and we are similar. We are both, and we can respect both. Arundhati Roy, whose book Mother Mary Comes to Me we just finished reading, wrote, "Nothing made me forget the world like reading did. Nothing made me think about the world like reading did. Nothing else filled me up. Nothing else emptied me out. Sentences and paragraphs would drift through my head like clouds. I particularly enjoyed doing book signings where I could get a fleeting moment with individual readers. I was so curious about them. People from countries and cultures I knew so little about, who had found something of themselves in the story of a family from a small village in Kerala, India. Just that brief meeting of eyes, the exchange of greetings, the myriad variations of could you please sign this for my, that revealed something to me about their lives, their loves, their friendships and relationships. It made me realize how literature can join humans in a bond of quiet intimacy the way almost nothing else can. Reading is a form of listening. Robin Wall Kimmerer of the Potawatomi Nation says listening, standing witness, creates an openness to the world in which the boundaries between us can dissolve in a raindrop. I've certainly found that reading is listening, and listening can promote understanding, and understanding helps to open and soften our hearts as well as our minds.
So I'm going to share some more writing from Naomi Shihab Nye from her book, Words Under the Words. As you might have figured out, she's a Palestinian American poet a children's author, an essayist, and an educator whose work sometimes revolves around her upbringing and experiences as an Arab American. She was born to a Palestinian father and an American mother in St. Louis, Missouri. She and her family moved to Jerusalem, her father's home city, when she was 14 to care for her ailing paternal grandmother. Amid the tensions that would escalate into the Six-Day War of 1967, the family relocated to San Antonio, Texas, after only being in Jerusalem for a year. In 1974, she graduated from Trinity University in San Antonio with degrees in English and world religions. Nye typically writes free verse poetry that uses everyday life to explore cultural issues and the connections between diverse peoples. For her, she has said, the primary source of poetry has always been local life, random characters met on the streets, and our ancestry shifting down to us through small, essential daily tasks. Her humanitarian efforts include several trips to the Middle East and Asia in support of the U.S. Information Agency's Arts America program, advocating for cultural understanding through the arts. She has won numerous awards for her writing. I love to read, but I typically don't read poetry. So this is one of the BIPOC books that I would never have picked up on my own. But now I'm clearly a fan of this woman. The book, as I said, is entitled Words Under the Words. It's actually a compilation of poems from several of her other books. My first reading is entitled The Flying Cat, which reminds me of the first time we took our dog on an international flight. Never in all your career of worrying did you imagine what worries could occur concerning the flying cat. You are traveling to a distant city. The cat must travel in a small box with holes. Will the baggage compartment be pressurized? Will a soldier's footlocker fall on the cat during takeoff? Will the cat freeze? You ask these questions one by one in different voices over the phone. Sometimes you get an answer, sometimes you get a click. Now it's affecting everything you do. At dinner, you feel nauseous like you're swallowing at 20,000 feet. In dreams, you wave fish heads, but the cat has grown propellers. The cat is spinning out of sight. Will he faint when the plane lands? Is the baggage compartment soundproof? Will the cat go deaf? Madam, if the cabin weren't pressurized, your cat would explode. And spoken in a droll, impersonal tone, as if the explosion of cats were another statistic. Hugging the cat before departure, you realize again the private language of pain. He purrs. He trusts you. He knows little of planets or satellites, black holes in space, or the weightlessness of fear. The second selection is entitled Yellow Glove. What can a yellow glove mean in a world of motor cars and governments? I was small, like everyone. Life was a string of precautions. Don't kiss the squirrel before you bury him. Don't suck candy, pop balloons, drop watermelons, watch TV. When the new gloves appeared one Christmas, tucked in soft tissue, I heard it trailing me. Don't lose the yellow gloves. I was small and there was just too much to remember. One day, waving at a stream, the ice had cracked, winter chipping down. Soon we would sail boats and roll into ditches. I let a glove go. Into the stream, sucked down under the street. Since when did streets have mouths? I walked home on a desperate road. Gloves cost money. We didn't have much. I would tell no one. I would wear the yellow glove that was left and keep the other hand in a pocket. I knew my mother's eyes had tears they had not cried yet, and I didn't be the one to make them flow. It was a prayer I spoke secretly, folding socks, lining up donkeys in windowsills. To be good, a promise made to the roaches who scouted my closet at night. If you don't get in my bed, I'll be good. And they listened. I had a lot to fulfill. The months rolled down like towels out of a machine. I sang and drew and fattened the cat. Don't scream, don't lie, don't cheat, don't fight. You could hear it anywhere. A pebble could show you how to be smooth, tell the truth. A field could show how to sleep without walls. A stream could remember how to drift and change. Next June, I was stirring the stream like a soup, telling my brother dinner would be ready if he'd only hurry up with the bread. When I saw it, the yellow glove draped on a twig, a muddy survivor, a quiet flag. Where had it gone in the 3 months? I could wash it, fold it in my winter drawer with its sister. No one in the world would ever know. There were miracles on Harvey Street. Children walked home in yellow light. Trees were reborn and gloves traveled far, but returned. 1,000 miles later, what can a yellow glove mean in a world of bank books and stereos? Part of the difference between floating and going down. Next one is entitled Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go so that you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is you I have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. And finally, so much happiness. It's difficult to know what to do with so much happiness. With sadness, there's something to rub against, a wound to tend with lotion and cloth. When the world falls in around you, you have pieces to pick up, something to hold in your hands, like ticket stubs or change. But happiness floats. It doesn't need you to hold it down. It doesn't need anything. Happiness lands on the roof of the next house, singing, and disappears when it wants to. You are happy either way. Even the fact that you once lived in a peaceful treehouse and now live over a quarry of noise and dust cannot make you unhappy. Everything has a life of its own. It too could wake up filled with possibilities of coffee cake and ripe peaches, and love even the floor which needs to be swept, the soiled linens and scratched records. Since there is no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug, you raise your hands, and it flows out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible. You take no credit, as the night sky takes no credit for the moon, but continues to hold it and share it, and in that way be known.
I'm Don Porter, pronouns he, him. I'm going to tell you about a book that we read in May called Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. The author, Jamie Ford, is a Chinese American man. This beautifully written novel tells the story of another Chinese American man, Henry, and a Japanese American woman, Keiko. The story happens in two parts, one in 1942, when Henry and Keiko are about to turn 13 years old, and then later in 1986 when they're both in their mid-50s. The teenage romance is shaken and then shattered by the upheavals of the Second World War. Ford evokes the human results of wartime attitudes, fears, and prejudices. In 1942, Henry and Keiko are in Rainier Elementary School, a white school in a mixed-race neighborhood in Seattle, Washington. Their parents have gotten them into this school by arranging, quote, scholarships that include the kids working in the school kitchen. Both sets of parents are determined to have the kids accepted as Americans. Henry's father has been furious with Japan for years, since Japan invaded China beginning in 1931. There is such fear and hatred of the Japanese in Seattle since the beginning of the war that it is dangerous to risk being mistaken for a Japanese. To protect Henry, his father has Henry wear a button saying, "I'm Chinese." Everyone is very aware that white folks cannot distinguish between Japanese and Chinese people. I was gripped by the bullying that the white boys in the elementary school inflict on Henry. In my racially pure white elementary school in Houston, 1948 to 1955, the bullies in my class were just the nastier big guys, picking on those of us they decided were fair game. The physical punishment I received was called to mind by the treatment that Henry got from the bullies in his school. There were also compassionate people that treated Henry and Keiko in ways that I found moving. The tough, white school cook, Mrs. Beatty, took a hard line against the white kid, Chaz, for bullying Henry, threatened Chaz with the punishment of making him take over Henry's kitchen assignment. Later, when Keiko was in a temporary internment camp, Mrs. Beatty arranged for Henry to go with her to the camp where she was providing food. Mrs. Beatty just paid attention and knew what to do to be a compassionate friend of Henry's and Keiko's. No one asked her to. I'm going to read a few excerpts from the 1942 wartime part of the book. In these excerpts, Sheldon is a young black professional musician, mainly played on the street. He is a very congenial and compassionate friend of Henry's and later also of Keiko. And Sheldon is interested in Henry's new relationship with Keiko. So now I'm reading from the book with Sheldon speaking. He says, "Speaking of big news, who's that little girl I've seen you walking home with, huh? Something I should know about?" Henry felt blood flushing his cheeks. She's just a friend from school." Uh-huh. Would that be a girlfriend, perhaps? Henry quickly answered in defense. No, she's a Japanese friend. My parents would kill me if they found out. He pointed to the button on his shirt, a new one his father had made him wear after the other one was ripped off by Chaz. So Sheldon says, I'm Chinese, I'm Lebanese, I'm Pekingese, I'm the ever-loving bee's knees. Well, the next time you see your Japanese friend, you tell her, "Oi dekite urashi desu." Henry mimicked, "Oi dekite urashi desu." Close enough. It's a compliment in Japanese. It means, "How are you today, beautiful?" I can't say that, Henry interrupted. Go on, she'll like it. I use it on all the local geisha girls around here. They always take it the right way. Plus, she'll appreciate it being in her native tongue. Very sophisticated that way. Mysterious. Henry and Keiko are walking through the Kobe Park on their way home from school. He knows the hillside park by the numerous rows of cherry trees that lined the streets. Across from the park sat the Nippon Kan Hall, more of a kabuki theater, really, complete with posters for plays he'd never seen. Like Chinatown, the whole area around the park apparently woke up on Saturdays. On Saturdays, Henry was following the crowd. He's not with Keiko anymore at this moment. Then he finds Keiko in the crowd. Keiko's face froze in a smile of surprise, interrupted only by her occasional wide-eyed blinking. "What did you just say?" Breathe, Henry. Deep breath. One more time. "Oi dekite urashi desu." The words came out perfectly. I did it. Silence. "Henry, I don't speak Japanese." "What?" "I don't speak Japanese." Keiko burst out laughing. "They don't even teach it anymore at the Japanese school. They stopped last fall after Pearl Harbor. My mom and dad speak it, but they just wanted me to learn only English. About the only Japanese I know is wakarimasen." Henry sat down. "Which means?" Keiko patted his arm. "It means I don't understand." "Understand?" "And which neighbor taught you to speak Japanese?" "Sheldon, the sax player on South King." Henry's eyes fell to the sketchbook. "Can I see your drawings?" She handed him her small black sketchbook. Inside were pencil drawings of flowers and plants, the occasional drawing of a dancer. The last one was a loose sketch of the crowd, the dancers, and a profile of Henry from the host of people below. That's me. How long did you know I was down there? You just watched me the whole time? Why didn't you say something? Keiko pretended she didn't understand. Wakarimasen. So sorry, I don't speak English. Joking, she took the sketchbook back. See you Monday, Henry. That's the end of the readings from the book. But Sheldon continues to play an important role in the story of Henry and Keiko as they form a bond with Sheldon's jazz music that holds tight over the many years they are separated.